All right, we're up. Welcome everybody to the interim plan commission meeting tonight. We're here tonight to hear two different requests for rezoning. So let's get right into the roll call. Ackerman.
Here.
Walton.
Here.
Stephanie Taylor.
Here.
Justin Lawler.
Here.
Debbie Vaughn.
Here.
William Jones. Here. Debbie Bucks. She's not here, she's sick. We're Brooks.
Here.
He sells, and I'm here, and our attorney Dustin Nelson is here. He will swear the people in who speak tonight and give you the rules for the procedure tonight. So the first thing is minutes for the July 16th meeting. Someone like to make a motion second?
I'll make a motion to accept.
Second.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Justin, do you want to go over the
Yes.
swearing in and the rules for the meeting tonight?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, there's a sign-in sheet at the front table here. So if anyone in the audience wants information after today about this decisions on the agenda, please sign in there to get all the information so that we can contact you. Secondly, anyone that's speaking tonight in the audience, either for or against the petition, or has any questions, need to swear you in or raise your right hand, so you stand up. And then when you talk individually, when that time comes, you come up on the speaker, state your name on the record and your address, so we can get that on the record for you. So if you have any idea or any notion today that you want to speak, I suggest raising your hand, because if you don't get sworn in and the time comes, you can't talk. So anyone for or against is going to raise their hand today. You swear to the penalties of perjury, the testimony you give tonight is the whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes.
Okay. Again, I'll remind you, if you forget, just to state your name on the record. For tonight, for both of the procedures on the PC 2004-07 and 2024-12, we'll be following the rules and procedures of the Plan Commission that has been adopted for years. So those are, I just want to let everybody in the audience know how that works and remind the board. First, Ms. Young will give her presentation on the individuals. We're going to start with 2024-07. She'll give her staff report on that. At that time, the Plan Commission members can ask Julie questions on her report. After that's done, the petitioner will have 20 minutes to make any kind of presentation they want. At the conclusion of their presentation, the Plan Commission can ask questions to the petitioner. Those questions will not count towards their time. Once the petitioner is done, anybody objecting or remonstrating against the petition has 20 minutes total to state and respond how they wish. So for the audience, if your first speaker takes 19 minutes, everyone else has just 1 minute. So please use your time accordingly. Once the remonstrators are done speaking, Plan Commission can ask any of those questions to the remonstrators. Again, those questions would not take against their time. And then after that, the petitioner has 10 minutes to rebut and speak on any of the issues raised from the remonstrators. Plan Commission again has questions for the petitioner. Once that is done, the public comments are closed. Anyone else can ask any questions to the Plan Commission. You guys have to deliberate and decide what you want to do. Now, in deciding what you want to do, And for the rezoning request, you are a recommendation board. This is a recommendation board that goes to the town council, so you're not the end all be all. You can make a favorable recommendation, which means you would recommend the council approve the rezoning, and you can put in any conditions to that favorable recommendation. You can make no recommendation to the town council. You can make an unfavorable recommendation to county council. Or if you have unresolved issues or questions you want resolved or answered, you can continue the matter to the next board meeting and ask the petitioner for further information. And so that goes with both petitions on that. Is there any questions on that?
All right, Judith.
Okay, so our first case tonight is PC 2024-07 PUD. This is Castle Rock PUD rezoning. This is a rezoning request from D.R. Horton of Indiana, represented by Brian Toohey. The owners are Michael King and Richard Wirtz. This property is 5664 and 7573 US 31, and some adjacent parcels that are east of 31 and north of 252. This is approximately 288 acres that we are seeking, or the petitioner is seeking a rezoning request. Currently, this is zoned suburban residential, which is an R1 zoning. It's also part of the highway corridor. On the screen, you see the surrounding zonings and the current land uses of those properties. So the petitioner has requested to rezone, and they have chosen PUD because they are choosing multiple land uses, and they have not chosen specifically one of our zoning districts, but this would be a residential, commercial, and park all within this property that they are seeking to rezone. So this is not R1 to R3 or R4, which is similar to what you will see in our second zoning request tonight. The location is outlined in red on the map here. The petitioner did satisfy our legal notification requirements. This was recently annexed into the town, 3 subsequent annexation requests. Current zoning that we have on the property, proposed zoning, so we have a residential request, a business district. Again, I will state that these are not straight copies of our zoning districts. They are essentially writing their own residential district and their own business district zoning regulations. So the proposed development would include no more than 850 residential lots, which would be single family and 2-family dwellings, and 20 acres of business district along US 31, and then approximately 25.5 acres of community park on the southern portion of the property that would be dedicated to the town. And I have laid out several items within my staff report, as well as attached comments from Orchard Park residents, the fire department, the highway department, that I have received, as well as the petitioner's proposed plans. I'm happy to answer any questions. The petitioner is going to go into much greater detail on their specific requests. But at this time, I would turn it over to the petitioner so that they can make their presentation.
Do you want from the board, have any questions from Julie before we hear the petition? No, thanks, Julie.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. President, members of the Planning Commission. My name is Brian Toohey. I'm an attorney representing the petitioner in this case. My address is 50 South Meridian. And here with me this evening from the petitioner D.R. Horton of Indiana LLC is Lee Phillips, Mark Bridwell, Reagan Potter, and also our broker representative, Ron Fisher, Keith Gilson, who's an engineer with Steppenworth Engineering, and I believe one of the landowners, Mr. Wirtz, is here this evening. Thank you for your time in hearing our case. So this, as Julie outlined, is a request to rezone about 248 acres from the R1 district to the PUD district to allow for 3 different uses: residential uses, commercial uses, and a park area that would be donated and dedicated for that purpose to the town of Edinburgh. And that's on about 288 acres. And there. And so, as Julie said, this site's on the west side of US 30, or east side of US 31, and it's north of 52. It's the 280 acre parcel is owned by Mr. Wirtz and Mr. King's families. And that's about 7 parcels of contiguous real estate. And as you can see from the exhibit here, the Camp Atterbury is over here to the west, 252 is to the south. Right south of this parcel is Heckman Village. Over here to the east is some farmland, a railroad track, County Road 700 East. And then our closest neighbors to the north, the Orchard Park neighborhood, who we recently met with a couple of their representatives. The next slide shows in a preliminary fashion, members of the Planning Commission, how D.R. Horton would propose to develop the site. And this slide, and I think we've handed out copies, written copies of this, it shows the outline of the 288 acres. So north is up here, right there is Orchard Park. Maybe I should use this screen here. Up there is Orchard Park. And here's the 288 acres. And the 3 uses would be, here's the commercial area of about 20 acres. And this client, this petitioner, is not the developer of that. That'll have to come back before you when someone comes and decides, here's how we want to develop. There's some uses outlined, which are typical kind of highway corridor uses. And in the PUD, we say that the highway overlay classifications and standards will apply to that area. But they will have to come back before this planning commission to get whatever is going to go in there approved. And so there'll be another public hearing once that's developed. But Horton would develop all this area here and the park area. And their proposal is to develop just single family homes and 2-family homes on those lots. And the idea would be that the single family homes would be all through this area here, except in this one area here, they would set that aside for possible duplexes. They don't know that yet, but this would be the area that those would develop. And the way Horton has laid out this plan is there's basically 2 minimum sizes of lots. There might be bigger, but these would be the minimum size of lots. And then the wider lots, bigger lots, are all on the perimeter. So there are these lighter colored lots right in here, and they make up the majority of lots. So out of the 850 lots, about 486, or just under 500 of them, would be the bigger lots, and then the other lots would be the smaller lots, and they are in the interior. The other thing that I'd like to point out about this proposed PUD plan, and again, it's conceptual in nature, and we'll have to come back for a plat before this body, and before Julie's team, the planning team, when we get further along the development. But the other thing I'd point out is that the idea would be that this park would be dedicated to the town. And in addition to that park, there's about 82 acres of common area throughout the community. And that would be maintained by the homeowners association. And so there'd be a mandatory, when you buy your lot, with your deed, you get a mandatory obligation to pay funds into the homeowners association. And with this many lots, there should be enough funds in that homeowners association to be able to maintain this. And so some of the features that they would install in connection with development is there'd be a walking, biking path that would come down here to the southern end of the subdivision. It would connect up through here. There'd be sidewalks on both sides of all these streets. And then that walking path would go on up through here along these common areas. And in these common areas, they would propose to put amenities for the community. And those amenities would be a pool and a bathhouse, ponds, retention ponds throughout the community. And then in here, we don't have it exactly designed yet, but the proposal would be to put a substantial playground, because it's a large community, and pickleball or game courts of some kind. Probably not tennis. Everybody seems to be playing pickle and basketball now. And those would be somewhere in these areas here, in this common area here. We would have a boulevard kind of entry off of 31 into this area. And then there would be another access down here at the southeast end of the site. We would stub some roads here, and up here, but our neighbors to the north, Orchard Park, have asked us to agree that we would not expand our community and connect into their street. We'd be pleased, and if the commission so desires, we'd make that a commitment that we would not connect to that street and would not expand our subdivision into the Orchard Park subdivision. So there'd be walking trails, common areas, a pool house, game courts, ponds, all maintained by that mandatory fees from the homeowners association. After talking to our neighbors and hearing from Julie of their concerns, our neighbors up here to the north, we revised our plan, and our proposal is to have in this area right here. So that right there is the northern end of our subdivision that I just showed you. And what we would propose to do is between our neighbors here, between their southern lot lines, we would build at least a 50-foot wide green area. And in that green area, we'd put a minimum of a 2-foot tall mound. That doesn't mean it couldn't be taller, but it'd be a minimum of 2 feet. And then in that mound, we put 2 shade trees, 4 evergreen trees, and 10 shrubs every 100 feet along this area to provide some separation and distance between our lots and their lots. And so their homes, as you can see, are along here. There'd be 50 feet from the back of the lots to the start of our lots. And then our lots would have a setback of at least 25 feet or so. So you add that up, I don't know how deep those lots are, but from house to house, I think you could estimate there could be 100 feet or so of separation at a minimum along this border. And we would make this, and have made this part of our plan to include this landscape area. The types of homes we would build, D.R. Horton is one of the largest public builders in the United States, and they build communities in really all the surrounding counties in central Indiana, Marion, Hendricks, Hancock, Johnson, then on up to Fort Wayne, Boone County, Hamilton County. So they built communities all throughout central Indiana. They would have homes that would be approximately from around 950 square feet to about 2,600 square feet. We expect these homes would cost between $230,000 at the starting price to about $260,000 for the homes on the smaller lots. And for the homes on the larger lots, we would expect these homes to cost north of $250,000, so $260,000 plus to over $300,000. One of the things that I would hopefully the Plan Commission would understand is a development of this size will take a considerable length of time. And we would expect that if everything was approved, say in this year, in 2024, and development work was to start in 2025, we probably wouldn't have residents moving into these homes until the spring or summer of 2026. So not next summer, but the following summer is about when you would expect to see residents, should this subdivision be approved and they get the plating done. These are again examples of the types of homes they would build on these lots. These are examples of what would be called either patio homes, duplexes, two-family homes. These are character representations, both one-story and two-story, of those types of homes. Here's another rendering of those types of homes. So as part of the PUD process in your ordinance, the developer shows the planning commission and the planners how they would propose to develop this. And the idea, Horton's idea, would be to start in the south end of development. So again, he is oriented, here's the north up here, Orchard Park's up here, there's 31 out here. They'd start down in this area here, and they would phase it 1 in this area here, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, then head east and finish it out. It's hard to predict how long something like this would take. When interest rates are high, like people say they are now, although some people my age would say they're pretty low compared to what I grew up with. With interest rates where they are now, house sales are a little slower than they would be if interest rates were decreased. But a good range for this type of subdivision would be sometime in a time period between 7 years and 10 years would be the likely build out of a subdivision this size. Could it be faster? Certainly. If interest rates got back to the 2 or 3% rate and there was an influx of people into the town and the community, which we think there's a shortage of housing, that would tend to make it faster. But if we would have a recession like we had in 2008 or 2009, that would tend to lengthen the time of what the subdivision would take to build out. But our estimate is it's 7 to 10 years to build this out, and our estimate is that would be starting with folks moving in sometime in the spring or summer of 2026. I attended a recent plan commission meeting and I saw a presentation about your, I think it's a new comprehensive plan, but before I get to that, let's talk about the traffic study. So we engaged A&F Engineering, a traffic engineering company in Indianapolis, a pretty well-known traffic engineering company, and they have been in communication with INDOT and with Johnson County folks. And we don't have exactly laid down how this traffic will work, but we have agreed and would agree, and make this part of the record, that we will coordinate whatever we do with INDOT, and we're going to need INDOT's approval. So there won't be any homes built until we figure out how this traffic access is going to work. And the traffic engineer basically said, well, there's 3 ways you could handle it. If you only had a few homes, you probably don't need a controlled intersection where this road connects into US 31. But the traffic report said by the time you finish your first phase, you probably need to do 1 of 3 things to make that traffic work and travel smoothly. You either need to put a traffic signal there at 31 in that entrance, you need to put a roundabout there at 31 in the entrance, or you need to install what I think some people call a Michigan J-turn, where you come out here, then there'd be a cut in this roadway here, and you do a U-turn, and I think you'd have those both ways. We don't know yet what would be the best way. Our guess is it's a traffic signal, but that's a guess, and that'll have to be coordinated from INDOT because that cut won't be given to us until INDOT approves the way we're going to handle the traffic. So, and that would be installed prior to completion of that section 1 of the development. Another excerpt from the traffic study was that the intersection at 31 and 252 would, even with these additional folks and homes, it'll continue to operate at an acceptable level of service. And then the last piece of the traffic study was they looked at the entrance here at the southeast end, at 775 south and 650 east. And they made some suggestions about one lane in and one lane out, installing stop signs at this intersection, and also a suggestion about straightening that out so it was more of a 90-degree straight-in turn. We'll coordinate this installation again with Johnson County Department and Town of Edinburgh. So for us to get a curb cut on that road, we're going to have to satisfy the Johnson County Highway Department and the Town of Edinburgh. So I don't know exactly what that'll look like this evening, but I do know that we won't be able to start houses and get a permit until we get that roadway permit from those folks. Now onto your comprehensive plan. I attended a meeting recently where it was a presentation was made to your new comprehensive plan. I don't know that it's been fully adopted, but there was a draft dated July 15th, so pretty recent. And it actually called out this site, and it said that this site, which is right here, was probably right for residential use and perhaps a single family attached and or a small area of duplexes, which is essentially what we propose. And in the comprehensive plan map, so this is what your consultants prepared, they showed that commercial, which makes sense right along 31, and then residential back through the rest of our site, and then they've shown this as a park area. Obviously, they've seen our early preliminary plan, and it appears they view that as compatible with their idea of development in this area. They also had another section of their comprehensive plan that's made some comments about this proposed subdivision. And in this section of the comprehensive plan, they said the town is in desperate need of new development to accommodate current and future residents. It said, and I quote this, "New housing could not come at a better time." According to the comprehensive plan, it said Edinburgh needs more diverse housing, including quality with affordability to accommodate residents with low to middle income, such as recent graduates, young families, and seniors. And then in the community feedback, it said that the focus groups describe the need for a variety of housing at a range of prices, from apartments, rental apartments, to single-family attached homes for seniors. Well, we don't have apartments in this development, but we think our plan would provide housing for a wide variety of people, recent graduates, young families, and perhaps seniors in some of the duplex type product. So members of the Plan Commission, thank you again for hearing our case. We've had a very good experience working with Julie and other folks here in the town, starting back to last year when we first met with Mr. Watson. And we appreciated everybody's courtesy and willingness to listen and assist us. And we appreciated their input, and we adjusted our plans from some of that input. In summary, it looks like that your comprehensive plan is indicating that diverse housing options are in need for Edinburgh, that there may be a housing shortage, especially with some of the new jobs that are coming to the community. The comprehensive plan even says the new housing could not come at a better time, and the town is in desperate need of new development to accommodate current and future residents. The approval of this rezoning, nothing will happen right away, but eventually it would allow the construction of new homes for existing and incoming new residents to Edinburgh. And there was a question at one of our meetings raised about whether the schools could accommodate, because if you have this many homes, you're going to have children. And so I called the interim school superintendent, Mr. Halleck, I think is his name, and I talked to him at length about that, and he told me that the Edinburgh school system could handle the influx of students, and in fact, in his words, they would look forward to additional students. Apparently, the student population of Edinburgh schools has remained pretty static for many, many years, and with this length of time that it would take this development to actually come into being, the school would have adequate time to plan for any additions that may be necessary. It would also,
Time, Mr. Toohey.
it would also increase your tax base, and we respectfully ask for your favorable consideration. Thank you.
Anyone on the board have questions? Good.
I've got a question. You mentioned the square footage of the homes, 950 to 2,000. When I went looking, Google is your friend. I don't see anywhere that Dearborn has done anything under 1,200 square feet. So where have you done that size?
You answer that. This is Lee Phillips, and he's with Dearborn.
Good evening. That is not a set square footage that we're determined we're going to do. It just gives us some flexibility depending on where we are and where the market is. I don't know that we've done a 950 square foot home. It's just a range. So it may be, we're constantly evolving our product lineup, and that could be a future development. So I agree with you that we may not have built that home to date, but that doesn't mean that we might not build that home.
Well, that's a question because you're presenting 850 homes. And the smaller they are, the more you can get. So that's why that's why I had that question.
Well, we're guaranteed, our PUD says that we won't have any more than 850. So
Right.
that's
Limited
dictated
by
by
the
the
number of
lot
lots.
size.
Mhm. Okay, thank you.
Anyone else from the board?
Mr. Toohey, I got a couple of clarifying questions.
Yes.
On your preliminary plan, you had a section on the Orchard Park buffer, section F. The exhibit you put up there, is that different than section F? Section F reads approximately 50 feet wide landscape buffer should be installed along the border of the residential district is adjacent to the existing Orchard Park. To include a berm at least 2 feet high, 2 shade trees, 4 evergreen trees, 10 shrubs.
I think that's what we intend to meet that criteria.
Okay, I just was wanting to make sure that was not a change or a new commit. Okay, so
And when I said that was a change, that was after an earlier first version of our PUD.
thank you. Okay, so it's what's in the preliminary plan. That's okay. But I would, is it right, I would say there's 2 commitments in addition to the preliminary plan is this PUD is subject to NDOT permit approval.
Yes.
And subject to approval on the entrance of 650 east by Town of Edinburgh and the highway, Johnson County Highway Department.
Yes.
I did not hear any other additional commitments, is that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So for, just to explain that, they have a preliminary plan that has been submitted with their application that is part of this, that's incorporated. That gives the details of what the PUD is. And what I've just confirmed is there's 2 additional items that they've committed to that if this would be ultimately approved by the town council, it would be subject to NDOT approval of entrance on US 31. So NDOT's gonna, Mr. Toohey's right, they cannot get a road cut unless the state mainly says yes. Because that's a state highway, that's their control, not ours. Second is, but on 650 east, that south entrance, they're committing that it would be subject to our approval, but also the Johnson County Highway. So does that make sense to everybody? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right.
Excuse me 1 second, please. In your presentation, you also mentioned, and I'm sorry I didn't make a note of it, where you said this could also be a commitment. Do you remember what you were discussing then at the time? Was it the berm area between them, or was it the not?
I wrote down 2 other items of potential commitments. One was an area set aside for duplexes,
Yes.
and one was no connection to the Orchard Park subdivision.
Yes, I agree with that. So that area set aside for the duplexes would be approximately in the center of the site, just east of that pond. It would be this area right here. And then we did agree that we would not connect to Orchard Park Drive.
Council, I'm gonna make just some references. This is slide number 3.
Yes,
It would be the darker beige color there in the middle by the middle detention pond.
Yes.
And that's committing an area to duplexes.
Yes, that's not to say for certain those would be duplexes, but if we decide to build them, that would be the area that they would be limited to.
If they weren't gonna be duplexes, what if it was?
These single family houses.
Just single family?
Yes, ma'am.
And no other part of the development would have duplexes.
I agree.
So, just to clarify then, the colors that are on the other parts of slide 3 that are the darker, those are just smaller lots, correct?
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Maybe the way to describe it would be east of the center pond and south of the recreation area. And we can come up with a name for that area.
Okay. Anything else to?
That's all I captured.
Okay. All righty, Mr. Ackerman, does that answer your question?
Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Jerome.
Yes, sir.
Justin, do you have any questions or thoughts on, reference anything with fire safety?
So on those duplexes, is that the darker ones, the 40-foot lots or the green ones?
They would be the 40-foot lots. So they would be right here. And those duplexes would have the same separation between buildings, minimum separation that the houses would have to.
Right. Do they currently have a product that would fit on a 40-foot lot that's a duplex?
Yes, we do. So each duplex would be, each building, each of those lots would be, 35 feet wide, 35 here, 35 here, and then 5 separation on each side, so it'd be 10 between the buildings.
Yeah, that's from a fire safety background that I have. 10-foot, we've had residence fires here with 30-foot in between them. There's substantial damage usually to the adjacent structure. So 10-foot apart's extremely scary for me from that background. Having any type homes that close together, so.
And I appreciate that, Chief.
Thank you.
Good guess on my part, huh?
Yeah.
I would respectfully point out that that is more and more common. So like in Franklin, they have a zoning district with a 5-foot minimum side yard setback. The Columbus and Bartholomew County ordinance has a 5-foot minimum setback. Whitestown, north of Indianapolis has a 5-foot setback, and Barbersville has a 5-foot minimum side yard setback. I didn't use Indianapolis because I think it's so different, but in a community like that, there's as small as 3-foot setbacks, I think. But I'm not arguing with you, I'm just suggesting to the board that that's becoming more and more common in communities throughout the country.
I know from those communities, with their fire protection, they've got quite a bit, a little more adequate than what we have in this smaller community right now, as far as resources and
Right.
stations and manpower, things like that, so.
All righty, is that it?
Julie, do you have anything else in reference to under staff recommendations? As far as anything that you would personally like to see?
The first 2 comments that I made have already been required. And the second 2 comments that I made are clarifying comments that I would recommend that the board consider based on the language that they have in their document currently. And those are just clarifying comments. And I believe Mr. Tui addressed that they the petitioner would be making those intersection improvements, but just specifically spelling that out in that language. And defer Mr. Huddleston on the specific language on that. So both item 5 and item 7 in that document, those were my comments to make that clear.
And does that include the comments you had on number 7 and 8 in our packet, after the chart?
Which chart?
The chart that you, so it looks like this in our reports. It's talking about the minimum lot area.
So, for the board, as you are considering this development, we consider zoning, we are considering the uses and the dimensional standards. So that is our lot sizes. And by definition, then that sort of backs us into the number of lots that we will be having. So the minimum lot size and the minimum lot width, that is how they get to their maximum number of lots. So if we look at my comments, I'm simply pointing out that these lots are smaller than any lot size allowed in our current zoning districts. That is something, a question for the board. Essentially, are you comfortable with those lot sizes? Obviously, that would not be something that we would design within our current zoning district. So if we went from, for example, 40 and 50 foot lot widths to 50 and 60 foot lot widths, the maximum number of homes would be reduced simply because the lot areas would increase. Hopefully that makes sense.
It did, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Julie, quick question, when you're talking about the lot size and everything else. In what they're proposing zoning wise, would they have to do something different zoning to put trailers on these lots, mobile homes? Because that, years ago, that was only supposed to be temporary in Edinburgh, and they're still here all these years later.
I guess I would ask the petitioner whether or not they are specifically saying what type of housing they.
No, I'm saying, would mobile homes be allowed under the zoning that they're requesting?
So it's manufactured housing is the HUD term. And it would, they are not listed as a permitted use in their, but they specifically, they're just saying single family dwellings, and they are not defining exactly how they're constructed.
Maybe just to clear that up, we would commit, not that there's anything wrong with mobile homes, we would commit that there would not be mobile or modular houses built in this community. They would be traditional, I guess stick bill is the word, or traditional construction, single-family residential construction.
Thank you.
What about utility plans? Have they got anything going with that? I'm the water superintendent, and I'd be really interested in seeing what the water plans are.
I think that one of the things Julie asked for was whether we would commit to the infrastructure, utility infrastructure would be installed by us to the standards of the town of Edinburgh, your water standards, and we would agree to that commitment. Again, we understand that we can't get a building permit from your town unless we have utilities that are acceptable to you. And so we're not far enough into the development yet to know about the water usage, but we know from our neighbors to the north that sometimes our water pressure is affected by the big, what are they called, pivots. And so we're gonna have to understand and be able to provide adequate water, not just for households, but for fire service and everything else. So we don't know the answer to that yet, but we would agree that our utility would be approved by the town.
Also, Mr. Toohey, in your presentation, where someone mentioned minimum 950 square feet, but in our packet, it's showing 900 feet. Do you know which is their minimum requirement they're going to be using?
I think we're glad to say 950. I agree the packet does say 900. They were looking at some other plans early on. That's where that came from. As Lee said, they wanted some flexibility. They have not built that product yet, but there's some demand, especially in other communities for smaller houses and smaller lots, less maintenance, less cost. So that's what they were trying to achieve, that flexibility. But 950 would be the minimum.
I do have one more question about the buffer. The buffer you show here captures, it looks like probably the last 7 homes to the east. What would be the buffer protection for anybody west of there that butts up to the commercial? Because then those first several homes, there's no guaranteed buffer in your plans for that development.
It's a good question. Down there. Let's bring that up. So the reason that our buffer is only shown in this area right in here is because this area here will be commercial and we won't be the developer of that. Our thought is that your Edinburgh ordinance probably requires a buffer area at the north end between commercial and residential. If not, then I would suggest that when they come in for the development, either establish one or establish one now as part of the zoning. It's okay with us because we're not going to develop that part. But I didn't want to suggest something there because I didn't know what the commercial standards were.
Do you
So-
know the standards?
That is within the highway corridor, so you can either establish the buffer today, or obviously when that comes in for development, this board would have to review that development as part of the highway corridor, and you could specifically address the development when you know what would be going on that parcel and the buffer at that time. So it's up to the board whether you want to specifically say, today, you want the buffer to match the rest of it, or you want to make it specific to whatever that use is going to be on the parcel that is adjacent when you know what that commercial use is going to be.
I would think it more secure if we would do the buffer, commit to it now, that way the whole addition's buffered. That we wouldn't have to have a fight in the future if not knowing what is gonna go there.
One-time
That
discussion.
should be contiguous with the landscaping and everything would all match and everything out of the gate, so.
We don't have an issue with that. We'd be glad to extend our buffer all the way to the west end.
Thank you.
Anything else? Thank you, Mr. Gooding. Thank you, sir. Demonstrators.
Yeah, and just a reminder, you have 20 total minutes, so again, if the first person takes the 20 whole minutes, someone else can speak, so just be mindful of your neighbors talking. When someone stops talking and a new person comes up, I will tell them how much time. Just remember, state your names.
Who's gonna be first?
Hello, my name is Gary Waters, 6387 East Orchard Drive. Okay, we went ahead and talked to the neighbors at Orchard Park, and we gave everybody their concerns, and we gave it to Julie, Ms. Young there, and I think she gave you all the packets, you do have them. And then the latest one we gave Ms. Julie was the pictures of the flood water that closed US 31. Did you receive those as well?
I did not print those today, but I do have them on the laptop.
I think Terry's got some he can pass out to you.
I remember it, so I don't even need it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it was, I think in 2000, I talked to Ms. Hollenbeck, and she said they actually came through the neighborhood and evacuated people from the neighborhood. So, one thing that we are concerned about is there's a massive amount of water, and we just wanted the Horton developers to know that when it does come, they're gonna be prepared for that amount of flood. Because the pictures show it goes across 31 and goes on down south, and it starts to come up on Orchard Park. Orchard Park, believe it or not, is kind of like an island because the water comes to us, but then it splits, and some goes across the business, and goes across 31, but the other one actually goes to the south, and it goes right through the proposed subdivision. And then down there where the parks, oh, that's it, Julie, thank you. And where the park's at, that all flood, that's all flood ground down here. Okay, so that's one thing we wanted them to really study, because we don't want Orchard Park, if something happens, to be flooded, our house is flooded. The other one, I think, Mr. Tooley touched on a little bit, we're kind of concerned about the aquifer. Whenever the farmer runs a center pivot, Terry had a study done to his well, and it actually dropped the well by about 15 feet when the center pivot's running. So 850 houses could be a concern. Even maybe there could be a provision in there that if our wells do run dry, that we can tie onto their water system, even though Edinburgh, I think, pumps out of the same aquifer as we do. And then we're asking for not to do a 2-foot mound, we're asking for a privacy fence down that 50-foot buffer zone. Because the privacy fence, we don't want the noise for one, when they're doing the construction, we don't want the noise, we don't want the dirt coming to our houses, and we don't want all the construction debris coming in our backyard. So we just asked before construction, instead of the 2-foot mound, if they would put a privacy fence up there. The other thing that concerns me a little bit, when I read, it says that they're allowed to park on the street. I think one car can park on the street per house. So I think that's bad. And the reason I think that's bad, the National Safety Board, so let me make sure I got this right, sorry about that. The National Highway Safety Traffic Administration reported that 60 children get ran over each week by slow-moving vehicles. And so if they're parking on the street, it's very hard to see children that dart between cars. So not only that, but to get the fire trucks and stuff to do crowded street would be very hard. So what I recommend is to put set-asides for parking like they do at Tipton Lakes and some of the subdivisions in Indianapolis, Columbus, where you can park not on the street, but you park little designated parking places, that's overflow. You still got parking in the garage, you got parking on the side, on the driveway, but if you have family and friends, they can park on this overflow. And I know that would take away one of their lots, but they could also use that as a bus stop. And on the backside, they could use it as a community garden center, they could still use it. So the other thing, I think Stephanie brought this up, it's going to be very packed in that community. And the houses started at 800 square feet living area, then went to 900, now they said they would go 950. Double wide mobile home can go anywhere from 1,000 to 2,300 square feet. That's just a mobile home, so their houses are really, really small. Does anybody else want to talk?
Carrie, I'll talk. My name is Carrie Hudson. Been a resident for about a year. Of course, we were not told, I don't know if people knew that this was going to happen, but we had no idea. And that's the reason we moved there. And that's what we told Justin, who was our realtor. That's the reason we wanted to live there, because it's a dead end. It's a really nice subdivision. And then, I think it was about 2 weeks later, we saw in the Daily Journal, there was gonna be 850 homes slammed in behind us. I'm all for growth. I am. I'm totally for growth. But I just can't fathom what this is gonna do to the town. There's one grocery store, that's JC, and it's already pretty full. There's a Dollar General, and there is a CVS. You're going to put 850 homes times, I don't know, what is that, 2,000 people that we're going to add? I just am very concerned about how it's going to affect my life, my home that, I moved to, that I thought would be my forever home. And now I'm kind of second guessing that, but the way it sounds to me, there's no place to go in Edinburgh, because this is coming and it's going to continue, it sounds like. And I am all for growth. I get it. I understand that the town has to move forward. But if there is any way, I just feel like it's going to be so intrusive that we're going to have all these homes right behind, we're the seventh house down as you come into the subdivision. We're the seventh house down on the right. We're gonna have people right up in our backyard. And I'm just concerned about, the future, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. And I'm concerned too, from what I've heard from DR Horton, I think it is. It's like, well, we can do this or we can do, I know nothing's firm yet, but I don't like what I hear about. It could be 900 feet, but it might be 800. Well, maybe it's 950. It's like, by this point in time, shouldn't there be a concrete proposal from them? And the other thing, the last thing I'll leave you with is, those are small lots, and I'm concerned about the influx of the people, crime, everything else that you can imagine. I think if each and every one of you were in our shoes, you'd feel the same way. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
About 12 minutes.
Anybody else? I got one more thing to say, if that's okay. It's a real quick one. I was gonna say, I might have gotten a little nervous. Sheila's right. Stephanie, you were absolutely right. I looked up about 20 homes, 20 subdivisions that Horton was developing. And in their literature on the internet, the minimum that they offered was 1,275 square feet. That was the minimum that they offered in, I think, 20 to 23 different subdivisions. So if there's any way we can definitely get that up to that, it would be a lot better. That's it. Thank you.
Can I speak?
Yes, sir.
I'm not supposed to say my name, but
Yes, sir.
my name's Gary Simpson. I don't think 30 houses, 70 people should stop a housing addition. I think that our town needs a housing addition. I think that people live out there, excuse me, I'm kind of nervous, live out there in their addition, which is nice, but okay, I live at 311 Lincoln, maybe I don't want no neighbors either. Maybe my neighbor Ray, that's my neighbor there, maybe he needs to move, maybe I need to have mine.
That's been said before.
All right, so
My point
are
is,
you for the petition? Are you for the project?
I definitely, we need housing.
All right, so this is for people against it, so you don't.
Am I speaking the wrong time?
Correct.
I'm sorry.
You're up. It's okay.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
My name's Rick Bullock.
Hang on, hang on. Make sure you speak on that, so we catch you on the mic. Yeah.
Rick Bullock, I live on Orchard Drive there. I see a lot of issues with the lot size. Lot size is, I think we figured it out, it's about a little over 1/10 of an acre. 1/10 of an acre, and squeezing these houses in there, it's gonna be as tight as the trailer court ever was. And I don't see 5 foot between the lines. I don't see it being very conducive to what good living. And another thing is, I don't see why Edinburgh thinks we need all these houses. Edinburgh, I can see growth a little bit. This is a big development in one area. I mean, if you want some houses, I would think you would, a little bit here, a little bit there. But this is a big, big chunk. It's gonna hit the water level. It's gonna hit the traffic on 252 coming in and out. There was just an accident out here on 31 just a few minutes ago, or about 4 o'clock. And you're hitting the road's real heavy with traffic right there. I mean, I don't see the plan as a good in and out for that community, one entrance, and it just, it's not a good plan. That many people. In the morning, there'll be, 800 people going to work. You got 2 entrances. I don't think it's good. I just think the quality of the lot size and everything is just too small to be attractive to people around here. I mean, in the country, in Johnson County, 5 acres was the minimum lot size. I think they probably changed it now. 5 acres, you're talking 1/10 of an acre. You squeeze a house in there. Our lots are backed up to it. And I think you could probably fit 3.5 houses on one of our lots. And it's gonna take away from the value of our home. I understand what he's saying. He wants it. I don't know why he wants it. But, it'll take away from the value of our homes. And I didn't buy my house to go down the hill. That's all I got.
All right, thank you, sir. Anyone else? Good job.
Going once. Got 9 minutes left. Anyone else? Speak now for the peace.
So now the board gets a chance to.
No, sir. Petitioner, you have 10 minutes if you want to use for a vote.
Thank you, members of the Planning Commission. Maybe first, I'd ask Keith Gilson to come up. He's from Stepworth Engineering, and talk a little bit about what they've done preliminarily and look at the drainage. Julie, are we still connected? It's probably me messing up somewhere. That's great. Can I move it?
Do you want to go back to full screen?
Yeah, full screen. Keith?
Good evening, everyone. Keith Gilson, Stepworth and Associates, 7965 East 106th Street. But we have preliminary looked at the drainage. There is a significant amount of water coming from the north. It's like, I don't have the basin maps with me, but it's like 200 acres or something like that. So we have accounted for that. We provide enough detain all that, release at that slower rate. So we have looked at it preliminary. We haven't looked at it in detail yet, but we will when we get further along, for sure. We'll make sure we meet the stormwater ordinance and such.
Have you sized those ponds to, were you aware of that drainage issue? Have you sized those ponds to accommodate that drainage?
Yep.
But it's not, you're not fully engineered yet?
No, not at all.
So, thank you, Keith. Members of the Plan Commission, we did meet with the neighbors, and if the Plan Commission thinks it would be a better idea to accommodate those neighbors to have a 6-foot privacy fence, vinyl or wood, shadow box fence installed along that border, on the border next to our property, either north of or south of that landscape buffer, we're fine on doing that. We actually considered whether we give, an allowance, say $3,000 to $5,000 to the people that are bordered along us, because we were thinking some people might not want a fence. They might think that's okay to not have a fence in there. But if it's the Plan Commission's desire and suggestion, we're certainly willing to install a 6-foot privacy fence along that common border. I think that would probably be best if it was right on the property line as opposed to set back, but we're open to suggestions to that. Then as to the size of our lots, I do appreciate the gentleman spoke about 5-acre lots, and I'm sure he's correct about that. But what Horton is seeing and other communities are seeing is people like our children, my children, they don't want to maintain a big yard. They want to have a simpler lifestyle. And so, like in Franklin, there are lots with 40-foot minimums. In Whitestown, there's lots with 24-foot minimums. And in Bargersville, there's lots with 35-foot minimums. I'm not saying any of those people are right and he's wrong. I'm just saying there seems to be a trend in single-family housing throughout the United States, certainly throughout central Indiana, for especially young people buying houses. They don't want to maintain the yards, they want smaller yards. And in order to have affordability in that $250,000 to north of $300,000 range, that seems to be what builders are building, and it's been well received. These homes they're selling, so they're not building homes that people don't desire, because that wouldn't make sense from their business standpoint. These homes sell very well, and so I think the drainage is an issue, but it'll have to get sorted out and finally engineered in the platting process. They engaged an engineering company to look at it. They were aware of that split, as that gentleman spoke about. They weren't aware of the extent of it until we saw some photographs, but we'll have to submit a drainage plan that your consulting engineers will look at and will have to approve again before we get a building permit. And Horton has at least preliminarily started to do that. I understand the woman's concern of the change. We've been coming to Edinburgh since last year when we first started the annexation process. So it hasn't been a secret. We sent out 50 notices to our surrounding property owners, and so this proposed development has been in the news or in the know for a number of months now, going on a year actually. And so we understand her concern about that. But I think that given this location on the highway, close to town, having been annexed into it, it's got good visibility. I think it's highly likely that either this development or some other development is going to go on that site. It's just too good a site for residential development. And given the apparent need for housing in Edinburgh, it seems to make sense. It certainly, Horton thinks it makes sense, and they've looked at it pretty carefully. And if I understand, it may not make sense to our immediate neighbors, but you know, when you think about this, this is an enormous capital investment. It would be in the many tens of millions of dollars. So they've carefully looked at this, and they believe it will be successful. It will take a while, but and they believe it will be a significant addition to the town's tax base and the availability of housing for folks here and folks coming here. So with that, we conclude our remarks and respectfully ask for your favorable consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Now, Mr. Simpson, you got 2 minutes if you want to add anything else.
2 minutes if you want.
The only thing I would add, our little town, we're just being swallowed up around us. You go to Bargersville, you go to Bogstown, over here on Trafalgar, they're building hundreds of homes. The only community smaller than us right now is Flat Rock. It's not even incorporated, I don't think. Everyone wants to have their dream home, but there's 4,000 people live here. We need some place for people to live. Thank you.
Anyone else want to speak for the petition? Mr.
Hi, Sarah James. I'm with Breeden Commercial. I represent the King family and their land. Just took some notes through the presentation. I think it's important to keep in mind the overall shortage of housing that we're hearing about nationally. It's been a long time since developers have been willing to make these kinds of capital investments. So I think this is a huge opportunity for the community. The other consideration is I sit on the Economic Development Board in Bartholomew County. I see over and over developments that consider coming to South Central Indiana or our region in general. One of the hugest impacts is employment base. One of the hugest impacts in raising your employment base is housing. So, sorry, I'm nervous. We do have a problem with lack of housing in this area, and it is impacting how many jobs we can bring to this area. So I think this is a crucial part to a bigger picture for our community and our state and really our region. So just a few thoughts that I had as I listened to that, and I wanted to just share maybe a bigger perspective.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Anybody else for the petition? Public comments or questions? Mr. Tui, I had one clarifying question on your last comment.
Yes, sir.
On the 6-foot fence, would that be, if they so choose to extend it all the way to the west edge, would that apply?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and would you, to make this easier, would you commit that the location and the material, either wood or vinyl, is approved by staff?
Yes,
I think that would make.
I think that's a good suggestion.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Would that be maintained by HOA?
Yes, sir.
Yes, it's gonna be on their property.
And we're going to want to keep it nice.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That it?
So board, you have a chance to deliberate, talk amongst yourselves, ask staff additional questions. I have 9 total commitments that the petitioner has made. I'm going to cite those to you now if you need to be reminded of those.
Please, I got 7.
First one is the entrance, and Mr. Tui, correct me if I'm wrong, entrance off 650 East will be subject to the Edinburgh town approval and the Johns County Highway.
Yes, sir.
Second is the entrance on US 31 will be subject to NDOT permit approval. Third is they're committing no connections to the streets of Orchard Park. Fourth is the duplexes, if constructed, are represented in the dark area in the middle on slide number 3. Fifth is they're committing to no modular homes, or as defined in the manufactured homes as defined. Sixth is all utilities will be paid by the petitioner and installed by our standards with our approvals. 7 is their revised minimum square feet is 950 from 900. 8 is they would commit the 50-foot buffer would extend all the way to the west edge of the property, which would include the commercial site. And then 9 was just the fence commitment, a 6-foot fence, either wood or vinyl, with the location and the material approved by the town of Denver staff. Those are 9 commitments. Is that correct, Mr. Tu?
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, what is the will of the board?
Can I say something about the water too?
This is Tom.
So as a water superintendent, I did a study on the water here in town in 2020 when we built our new plant to make sure that it's required by IDM. So we pumped every well for 24 hours straight together at a total of 5,450 gallons a minute. The water table dropped 15 feet, but recovered back to 2 feet from original after 24 hours of pumping. So, and then once wells were all shut off within 30 minutes, water levels were back to normal. So we set on a really good aquifer. And if you look right there on her desk, that black and white copy there, you can go on the Indiana Chambers of Commerce. They just finished a water study that was completed yesterday. And it is on their website, so you can read that. You just have to go on their website and then go to search 2024 water study. And it will tell you we're actually in the area that they did complete that study completely, and we're in a pretty good standing with water. It tells you a lot more, and it's 81 pages. So I printed off 1 copy for myself and Julie. But like I said, Indiana Chambers of Commerce, you can go on their website, and it tells you all about the water study.
Thank you. Anything else from the board? So we'd like to make a motion. Would we pass this on as a recommendation? Approve or whatever?
Again, board, you have favorable recommendation. You can have those conditions or any other conditions you want to add on those, but we have 9 conditions with the petition. And no recommendation or not favorable.
Okay, I have a question for you. If we go with that, do we have to bring up the fact that the standards that we have set that are in our zoning will be superseded? It's not the word I want,
No.
but.
The PUD means the standards are in this
Are
preliminary
that?
plan.
Okay,
So that's what you're adopting here today. That those, the less referenced in the preliminary plan.
okay.
Zoning standards are, it's what they've seen.
Okay, thank you.
That's why the lot size, square footage, all those things are in this plan. You adopt or you recommend approving it, and the town council adopts it, that's what the standard is. But you do not have the special note because they have applied for a PUD, and that's what it means. It basically rewrites and has standards within the described area.
From a planning perspective, do you think you have everything covered, that you're gonna be working hand in hand with this company for a long time? So,
Yes,
anything
this,
else we need to add, if in fact we favor it?
If you were to forward this to the council tonight, this would be, I'll say, vote number one of many, in this process. So, council would have to approve the rezoning, you would have plat approvals, so, there would be many more public hearings and votes. This is, I will just say, this is the chance for the council and the planning commission to set the standards. So, obviously, council will get to see this, but, we are writing a new zoning district tonight. And then we'll look at the plat later. So I'll have all those discussions with them later on plat design. Zoning district, we have all the information in here for a new zoning district. As Ms. Taylor's mentioned, we are writing a new one that is different from our current ones. So I have the information to work with them and move forward. The question is it what the board and the council want in that area?
And you said we're step one and it goes on to the council.
This is step one, it will go to the council, when council approves it. At some point, they will file a plat, which will officially lay out the subdivision and be back before this board for approval.
I guess, my name's Ray Walton, and I guess I got a kind of a two-edged sword in this because I serve as township trustee, of which all of this out here is gonna be a part of that. I graduated from high school here 60 years ago. I've been an insurance agent in this area for 25 years. I've been elected to several boards. And the one thing I keep hearing is our school system has got to have kids. We've got to have tax money. I don't know how many times at work people would say, why don't Edinburgh grow? I said, we can't grow. We're landlocked. 3 counties, Atterbury, flood zone. I see an opportunity for us to grow. I can sympathize with everybody in here not wanting something in their backyard. But I think it's very important that we move forward. As painful as it is going to be, I think it's going to be important for this community. That's all I got to say about it.
Are you ready to make a motion
I will make a motion.
to forward favorable, right?
Yes, with those 9.
You're right.
Recommendation, then, no. Okay, so I'll recite those for the record. So it's a favorable recommendation with the 9 commitments as follows. The entrance on 650 East will be subject to the approval of the town of Edinburgh and the Johnson County Highway Department. Number 2, the subject entrance on US 31 is subject to NDOT permit approval. Number 3, there's no connections to Orchard Park subdivision. Number 4, duplexes, if built, are contained in the area identified in the middle of slide number 3, in the darker beige color. Number 5, there'll be no modular or manufactured homes in the development. Number 6, all utilities will be paid for by the petitioner and installed by our standards with our approval. Number 7, the minimum square foot of any residential structure would be 950 square feet. And number 8, the 50-foot buffer that is already proposed on the north side would be extended all the way to the west edge of the property. And number 9, is a 6-foot fence, either wood or vinyl, will be installed all along the 50-foot buffer, which includes the extended area to the west. And that location and material will be approved by the town member staff. Those are the main conditions. Is that correct?
And maintained by the HOA.
And we can add that if maintained by the HOA.
Okay, we had a motion. Did we have a second?
No, we don't.
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thanks, everyone.
All right, next case.
Everybody, if you're not here for the second petition, please leave, or if you want to, leave the floor so we get this done.
Thank you.
Our next case tonight is PC 2024-12, rezoning. This case is for 7078 East State Road 252. This is a request to rezone 2 acres. This is actually a 3.7 acre parcel, but the petitioner is requesting to rezone only the northern 2 acres of the parcel. They are requesting to rezone from R1 to RB roadside business for the purpose of building a barn-dominium to host events, weddings, and gatherings. Its property is zoned R1. It's also within our highway corridor district. Currently, it is being used for residential. Petitioner did satisfy our notice requirements. As I mentioned, this is a rezoning request, 2 acres only. Here's a location. This is west of 800 East. It is immediately adjacent to the town's street department. Petitioner did submit a survey here, legal description, so that we did have the information necessary to process this rezoning request. Just some background, this property was just annexed last year. There was a prior rezoning request last year that was denied by the town council. It has been more than a year since that was denied, so this is able to be submitted and heard. Currently, we have a residential request, and we're attempting to go to the commercial by the petitioner here. The petitioner did go through the permitted uses of the roadside business district, and they have proposed this list of permitted uses. So you'll see in your packets, there's a lengthy table. So these would be the only uses permitted if this property were to be rezoned. Next, this would be the only special use that would be permitted if the petitioner were to rezone this. And then the petitioner put all of these uses in the prohibited use column for this zoning district. So they have gone through and eliminated these uses. And I will allow the petitioner to now describe exactly what it is they're trying to do with this property and make their presentation.
First, any questions for Julie, preliminary?
Preliminary questions for me.
All right, district. Just a reminder, state your name for the record, you got 20 minutes.
Thanks, Jeff Donofrio. Yeah, I bought this property about a year ago this month, and I'm trying to figure out how to use this. If I can, the initial use is for the north half of the lot of the property. Just want to build a barndominium, host weddings, receptions, things of that nature. You know, nothing as far as a public access or, you know, just a grocery store or anything like that. And like, as far as attempting to have a liquor license, as far as for the weddings, for receptions, things of that nature, I don't know if that's really in the bars and taverns kind of thing. It's not going to be a public access kind of a place. I just want to make that clear. That, yeah, and for some of these things that are listed, like here, like libraries and museums, I don't, we kind of went through all of everything that's kind of listed there. And I mean, I don't know the stipulations as far as for breaking everything out and all that. But yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty simple, and yeah, I just request your permission to do so.
Anybody have any questions?
Yes, sir. What are you proposing size-wise, capability, maximum numbers that could be used in your facility that you want to build?
Looking probably 250 to 300 people. And I can, you know, as far as if that's a stipulation, I can stipulate, you know, I can adjust that to what, you know, what would be necessary to approve, if that makes sense. Thank you.
Do you own any other businesses of this nature?
No.
You do not?
I do not.
Have you ever owned any other business?
Not of this nature, no.
I mean, you said not of this nature, have you owned other business?
I've owned a tool company, yeah.
Did you buy that property with this in mind?
Yes. And I was not told when I bought it by my realtor or anybody else that the property had been annexed into the city. I was told it was outside of city limits. Just, but yes, I bought the property with this in mind. Anyone else?
Can we go back to the map and can you talk about parking? And,
And I'll see it on Saturday with the plan.
You can just walk up.
Yeah, okay. So yeah, on this side here, there's already a barn. The main building would be built here, and then this area here would be parking, and then additional parking here if necessary.
And where would the access egress be for the property?
There's a driveway that's already here that goes all the way back to it. That would be a shared driveway with the house is here. There's a garage here, and like a little barn here. So this would be shared basically to the garage and so forth there.
And that's just a single width driveway, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, that's number one in and Julie's recommendations is what I think. Robert.
Any other questions?
No, I'm saying it's only single width.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Any other questions from the board?
Thank you. Thank you. Anybody want to speak against the petition? Yes, sir, come up, state your name.
I'm not necessarily against it, I just want to warn information. My name is Larry Miller, I live right next to 7810, right next to it. I didn't quite, I couldn't see the screen there, but the zoning, is that going to affect my property?
This is just to rezone his property.
Just his fault.
Yes, sir.
And as I understand it, the building will be way in the back.
Yes, sir, it's his proposal.
And there was also, I understood, there's gonna be other activities there, parties or something like that. Or possibly drinking, which that would be the one thing I would be against, the alcohol. Like I said, I'm not really for or against it. I just didn't want a lot of activity. That area has always been a quiet area out there. And so that's one thing that concerns me.
Anyone else?
Yes, sir.
I'm not for or against either, the same thing. Francis Cecil, I live 7813 East State Road 252, Catty Corner from you. And I guess we would just want some assurances that it won't go south, that it won't end up a bar, or it won't end up big huge parties with a lot of people going up, carrying on late in the night. Will there be a curfew? Will there be, is there some sort of a guideline to how this will be used? Or will it just be wide open to whoever's back there renting the place? So that's my question.
Anybody else want to speak against?
Ruth Freeze, 5289 Southwest Highway 31. My concern is a single width driveway with traffic going in and trying to come out at the same time. There wouldn't be enough room for that. And also I'd like to know what the driveway is made out of. If it's gravel or it would turn into mud with cars trying to get in and out. If it's an event center, that wouldn't be really great. But my biggest concern is traffic going in and out at the same time.
Thank you. Anybody else want to speak against? Yes, sir.
Not for or against either, but Mike Miller, 7777 East State Road 252, directly across from my neighbor here. I met Mr. Donofrio. He seems like a really nice guy up front. Little history, of course, you already know. We did the whole rezone fight against the Dollar General. I told him I met him. Okay, I'm glad you're here. I just saw it when I got here too. I couldn't really tell. My question is going to be, was it just going to be 2 acres of the almost 4, which looks like it is? I guess my question would be, so just the north 2 acres is going to be commercial, then his front half is still going to be residential?
Correct.
Okay. Okay. And then I like the other Mr. Miller said, I'm not real crazy about the alcohol thing, but I get it. It's a wedding venue. That's going to be a lot more appetizing to people who want to hold it and have it. So, yeah, I just wanted to state that. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Okay. Petitioner, you got 10 minutes if you want to address any of those concerns.
I forgot the first one. What was the first concern?
The bar, ending up as a bar, what about curfew?
Right, if, it can be stipulated that it's not gonna be a bar, as, as said. I mean, we can discuss curfew if that would be necessary. It will be regulated, and I've spoken to another person in my family, is a photographer. She works with these types of events. And there's sometimes a security person necessary in a situation like that, if alcohol will be presented. But even if I had the liquor license myself, it would be determined as to the serving of it and things of that nature. And the serving can be limited, and I will stipulate to the limitation of alcohol being served. So there's not gonna be any kind of wild, anything going on. Everything will be controlled. And if things were to get out of control, and my security couldn't handle it, I would call the police myself. And I will be directly involved in every event that is being done and taking place. So, yeah, I have no problem with that stipulation. As far as the driveway is concerned, at this time, it is a single driveway, it is a gravel. I've spoken to several different options as far as to maintain it as a gravel or pave it, concrete, what have you. So like I said, that's not determined, I don't have anything set on that. My main goal was to obviously get approval to be able to do this, so I could move forward in what would be necessary. And as even to extend the driveway, the width of the driveway, I have no problem in doing that, if that's a stipulation that's necessary. Is that all that was? The
A
problem?
follow-up to Mrs. Freeze's comment.
Yes.
My concern, one was about the width of the driveway, just only being single width, but also to, with an event facility, everyone's gonna be coming, pretty much everyone's gonna be coming at the same time,
Right.
leaving at the same time. I'm concerned about the traffic coming out onto 252. No, we've been lucky, we haven't had a lot of accidents that I know of along that stretch, but this could pose a problem traffic-wise, and I'm not sure whether that would fall under the NDOT review, Julie, or, okay,
So NDOT has to,
that's one of the commitments she's suggesting.
okay, yeah,
That's one of the items I'm suggesting.
that's what I thought.
Those are my two concerns.
Yeah, it's number 4. You have a preliminary sketch or anything of the building?
At this time, I don't. I've looked at several different types of buildings, and I haven't even decided on exactly which type I'm looking at. Maybe I could produce one or two of those types of sketches. But like I said, the money involved to produce something like that, I just didn't want to put that money into it if it's not even an option.
Right. I have a question. You don't own that, the residence that's there?
Yes, I do.
He owns the property.
You own all of it?
Yes.
Okay.
He lives in the house.
Oh,
He'll be up front.
Yeah.
How many guests again did you say were home?
250 to 300.
That's what I thought you said.
Anything else?
So I have, here's the commitments, where I have in the application is limited uses, prohibited uses, those are already in there.
Yes, sir.
So I have a commitment that you would limit capacity 200 to 300 persons.
Yes.
4, you would commit there would not be a bar.
Yes.
Exception that's under a zoning ordinance.
Yes.
So we can add that.
To the use table.
And then 5th, I heard you would expand the width of the driveway.
Yes.
Okay. You have a certain feet you want to expand it to?
No, I don't know what would be, requested.
Yeah.
If, whatever that request would be, I'd be willing to stipulate to adhere to that request.
Board having consideration on the width.
I think that would, correct me if I'm wrong, Julie, but didn't you say that would fall under the NDOT review of the commercial?
No, not necessarily.
That would be the entrance.
Yeah.
So the driveway width going back to the property
Okay.
would need to be a minimum of, I'll say it's 2 lanes worth of traffic.
Okay. You okay to say be subject to the staff's approval?
Yes.
Okay.
Tonight, we are looking at rezoning, but this would come back as a highway for you to see the exact site.
But they could put in their stipulation that the driveway needs to be expanded to, subject to your approval.
That's true.
So that would, okay, that's, 3 additional commitments I have.
Okay, gravel driveway, is that
It's already gravel.
do we wanna keep it at that then, or do we wanna make that a commitment that was brought up? Subject to her, does that
Well,
go
that's-
in with that?
That's just the width.
That was the
I didn't hear anything about that. I know someone had a concern about what it was, but he said it's gravel.
Is that,
You can make your own conditions and say it needs to maintain gravel.
Yeah, if I keep it gravel, to maintain it as gravel, or concrete, whichever way I decide to go upon your approval, or, and NDOT's, approval.
There's nothing about gravel. He's committing to keep it gravel, and the board wants to adopt that as well, so I can add that.
okay,
Okay, go ahead, Stephanie.
no, that was it, yeah, that's, yeah. I'm adding these commitments here in the notes. Okay, we're
I'm
good.
with you.
So that's 8 different in total. Dustin, is that 8?
I just have 4 because the 2 unlimited uses, prohibited uses are already, part of the petition.
Can I make one request on that? That's one thing I was trying to get, I didn't want to go to, and I apologize. There was I think it was in a stipulation to, as far as a house of worship or gathering of worship, I'd like that be permitted. If, yeah. And I think now it's on the not use, I like to be considered as a use, but that's the only thing.
Yep, it's on the prohibited.
Okay, now I have 5 here. So the first one would be maximum occupancy is 300 kitchens. Second one is adding to the prohibited uses is no bar or tavern. The third would be the width of the driveway would be expanded to staff approval. The fourth is the driveway would be maintained as gravel. And the fifth now is just we want to allow the use of a house of worship. Those are the 5.
Okay, then Julie also has 5 that she listed.
And then you can incorporate in any recommendation for your staff recommendations.
That's what I meant a while ago, Dustin, I apologize.
No, it's okay. I'm just, the ones I captured are what the petitioner,
Right.
in addition to his file.
That would be 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
So if you would adopt the petitioner's conditions or commitments and staff recommendations, that would be part of your motion for recommend a favor.
Anybody else?
I'll make a motion to recommend favorable with the 5 conditions that Julie did and the 5 conditions that you just named.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All same sign.
Aye.
Carry 7-1. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Make a motion to adjourn. Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye.